Okay, in this video, after all of my rants about how cynical I am about Blender Grease Pencil 2.0 or Blender 2.8, here I am giving it a try. Okay, so I modified my Blender 2.8 startup file so that instead of starting in a 3D perspective view with a cube in the middle of it, it starts up in the front view with no cube. That's really the only thing I've changed. I literally have almost like no clue how to get around in Blender 2.8, but I have figured out a couple things. So I'm going to go ahead and start out with to get busy working with the grease pencil, you just hit Shift A the way you always did to create an object, because now the grease pencil is an object just like a mesh thing, right? So in my case here, I'm going to create the monkey only because it adds a bunch of colors and, you know, different sorts of grease pencil variations that I don't have to create from scratch if I create a blank grease pencil layer. Stroke kind of is in between in that it creates the grease pencil object, which is this object right in the middle. It looks like an empty, basically. But it adds a stroke to get you started. So I'm going to just Control Z that, and let's let Blender hold our hand a little bit. So, okay, so what I see here is that, first of all, up here in the corner where it says object mode, if you want to actually get busy drawing, it looks like most of my hotkeys are gone. You know, my hotkeys that I'm used to are toast, so I'm going to have to do everything with the mouse. But if I want to draw, that's pretty much it. You just go up here in the corner and go from object mode to draw mode. Now, again, despite my occasional cynical rants, I gotta say that so far, look at this, 10 stars. In terms of the tactile, responsive character for drawing, yeah, 10 stars. It is better, I would say, than anything else I've been using. The closest that would come to it would be the OpenTunes My Paint brushes are very close, or just using My Paint. My Paint is very responsive. So, really, really impressive. I like the feel of it. Yeah, I can't complain. I can't complain. That's looking pretty good to me. Okay, so what about the different kinds of pens that are available, markers and stuff? Obviously, you can create your own, but I don't yet know how to get into it and create my own. I think it's over here. If I click one of the presets, which of course I'm sure I can add my own presets, then you go over here on the right. There's really two of these little icons that are of interest. The material button seems to take you to all your colors, which kind of makes intuitive sense. What is this button? Properties, maybe? Let me see what they call it. I gotta use my mouse instead of my tablet. Okay, if we mouse over that, okay, that's the tool icon. And in the tool icon, we can see the actual characteristics of the tool itself that we can modify. Okay, so in terms of editability, what I'm focusing on here is the shortest path to actually be able to get busy with Grease Pencil 2. Okay, so create a Grease Pencil object. Choose your activity here by getting into draw mode, and then you can deal with the properties of either the brush or you can think of it this way: the tool icon is letting you edit the current tool that you're using, whereas the materials button is letting you deal with your palette. And as far as the what would it be? As far as the layers, where are the layers? Let's find them. Yeah, these aren't layers, these are colors. So if this takes too long, I may edit this video to take the pokiness out. Let me try this. I'm going to hit the N key to bring up my properties here. And so, and obviously we have the outliner as well, but let's just go down the line. It wouldn't be under camera. Wait a minute. Okay, these are render layers. That doesn't seem to be showing me anything. I should be finding a layer called Suzanne, since that's what they, by default, what they call the layer that has the monkey in it. Wait a minute. Okay. Yeah. Object, constraints, effects, and of course we can add effects to grease pencil layers now, which is cool. Ah, here we go. It is under data. Okay, so the little pencil, I got to get this set in my head. The pencil icon or data is your layers, and the materials icon is your colors. All right, and I'll probably set it up my screen so I can see both at the same time eventually, like I have been doing in Blender 2.79, but for now that at least lets me get around a bit. So now the question is, the most important thing to me is the fill tool. You know, that's what makes Blender 2.8 potentially a game changer, and in terms of actual workflow, a potential OpenTunes killer. We'll see. Let's find out if it's all that it promises to be. I'm putting everything in the lines layer, by the way. But I'm going to go to my colors here so that I can grab the skin color here in just a minute. All right, so let's try it this way. Let's use the draw ink, and let's draw a shape. And this is going to be apparently somebody's arm, maybe. Okay, there we go. So now we got to fill it. Let's fill the area. Let's see what happens. I'm going to select skin, and nothing seems to happen. Okay, this is kind of weird. I see it as a bit of a flaw, but it's not a deal breaker. What you got to do is go over here to the properties of the tool. And again, this is, to me, this is a little bit of a strange choice, because you have to actually change the color at the tool level. Okay, so from my perspective, that's not horrible, because I could just leave this panel open, and whenever I want to change colors, just do it there. On the other hand, I will say that's decidedly non-intuitive. So as I'm looking, because right now, there it works, and it works perfectly. So 10 more stars for Blender 2.8. If it doesn't start blowing up for no reason, it's looking pretty good to me, because the ability to draw and the ability to fill is pretty much it. You know, if you're really good on those two things, you can find a way to get everything else done, right? So this is definitely a good day for Blender 2.8. You know, again, in spite of all my rants about how I'm going to really take the wait and see attitude, so far what I see looks pretty good, and this is only an Alpha 2 release. So what was I going to say? It seems to me, if I was thinking about how the developers might be thinking about this, it seems like you would have an option here in the tool so that you can choose to have it follow your color selections. So in other words, so I'm on skin right now. I'm wondering if there's something here. Options, maybe? Yeah, I'd really like to see an option so that when I change colors, it doesn't matter what tool I'm on, the color changes. Now, you can argue it both ways. I mean, see, it's still going to fill it with the same color even though I selected the skin shadow color. So now if I'm going to take the draw pen, let's see, is the draw pen going to be the skin shadow color, or is it going to be some color that's baked into the tool itself? Okay, it's black. So that tells me, again, that, so it's not a big deal, but I can see that I'm going to have to keep jumping back and forth between panels, and that is generally something I try to avoid. So, but again, not a hugely big deal. What you would wind up doing in practice is saying, let's duplicate, 3 pens so that they have the 3 colors I'm going to use, which would probably be a black, a charcoal, and then either a red or a blue for indicating like shadows and stuff like that. Let's see how the stabilizer works. Let's click the stabilizer. I've always been pretty impressed with the stabilizer in the Blender UV editor. So if this is the same, it is. Look at that. Now, will it finish my line? It doesn't finish my line. That's almost a deal buster for a stabilizer, in my opinion. Because when I come around here, there's the end of my line. I want to close the shape, and it doesn't close the shape. So that would be a note to the developers. Let's make it, at least give it the option. Now, maybe it has the option to finish the line. I should be, before I'm too judgmental, I should definitely check first. Stabilizer really doesn't have, let's see what happens when we turn factor down. Yeah, nothing including act of God will get the stabilizer to finish my line. And the problem with it is that, as you can see right here, you're tending to either come up short or you're going to come up too far. So that's a flaw, but I'm sure if the squeaky wheel cried about it a bit, then I'm sure the developers would look at maybe making that so it does finish your line. It's actually what I really like about the stabilizer in OpenTunes, is it does finish your line for you. And plus, of course, they have snapping. Here, I will say that the snapping's probably not as important because, as you can see, the fill tool has this thing called leak size right here, which is quite useful. So in other words, like this is a good example. This shape is huge. I mean, it's got a huge gap. So there you go. So Blender's going to fill the whole area. However, if I turn the leak size, okay, why did it just switch back to the pen? Okay, that's interesting. That might be a bug. All right, so let's turn the leak size way up to 100. It's got to think about it a lot. I think it's still thinking, actually. I'm thinking maybe it doesn't know how to cope with. I'm not sure what's going on. So let's split the difference. Okay. Okay. So you can see that in terms of a leak size. Now, does that mean we can be sloppy? Clearly it doesn't, because when it sees the gap, it's going to create this line, and you're going to wind up having to go in and fix things anyway. So the basic rule of thumb is close your shapes. Don't be stupid, basically, is the rule. Now, the nice thing here is not too tough to fix up, although I can see a little bit of some wackiness there that would have to be fixed manually. And this is where the switching colors with layers is, switching tools to switch colors, right here is where you can see why that's problematic. In practice, what am I actually going to have to do? I'm going to fill something, it's not going to fill perfectly, and then what I'm going to want to do is just take a brush and fix it. Well, the problem is, I think this is the brush that had the stabilizer on it. So the problem is, because the brush retains its own color, I'm hosed. Now I literally have to change tools, go back to the tool, change the color. In terms of workflow, the only word I can come up with for that is stupid. That would be a stupid way to work. You would never want to work that way. What you would want is to be able to do a fill and say, oh, it's flawed. Okay, let me just grab a pen and color it in. End of story. If it changes color every time you change tools, that's actually almost a game stopper for me, because that is going to come up a lot. And the main thing I'm looking at Blender Grease Pencil 2 for is ink and paint. So that's me. All right, so I am going to look here and see if there's some option let me look in the materials. I want to see if there is an option to force the tool to force all tools to follow the color selection. I'm not really seeing it. So now let me grab the tools, and what would be more likely would be an option per tool to either maintain its own color or follow. And I suppose that would be here in the material. Display the number of users. Okay. Okay, what happens if we kill the material? So now we have the brush, but it has no material. Now it defaulted to black, but maybe that's the answer. Maybe if I don't assign a material to the tool, nope, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. Yeah, that's too bad. It's definitely a bummer. Yeah, and then it just came back to black here as soon as I selected black. So in terms, I guess I think yeah, 15 minutes or so. I think I'm gonna stop there. I'll say that everything looks really, really good. That deal where I have to change colors every time I change tools is gonna be difficult. And actually, to be fair, OpenTunes has the same problem because OpenTunes does a horrible job of remembering state. So if you select a tool, I mean, in other words, what I'm going to have to deal with Blender 2.0, I've been dealing with all the time with OpenTunes anyway, which is that it forgets. So you're humming along working, and then you select any tool at all in OpenTunes, and it immediately forgets the state of the software when you switch tools. So then when you switch back to the previous tool, which might be like a brush or something, you have to go reselect your color. Actually, you have to reselect the brush if it's a raster level. You have to. It actually always goes back to the default brush. So again, that's a functionality that's it's basically just dumb. So the only thing I can think is the developers never tested that and came across the problem and realized, okay, that's kind of silly. It should remember, what I was doing before I selected. The classic example in OpenTunes would be you are, we'll discard the changes here. So the classic example here would be I create a Tunes raster level and then I select, say, this paintbrush. Okay, so I draw a bunch of stuff, and now I have to select something with the S key to move it around, let's say. All right, so then I hit the B key to go back to painting, and and as one might expect, in this case, what I'm describing didn't happen, even though it happens like all the time. So why didn't it happen? I'm not sure. Let me select some other tool that might have some pertinence to a... Let me go to another level. Okay, and then come back here and hit the B key. Okay, there it did what I'm talking about. So yeah, selecting the S key didn't do it, but going to another level does. So I go back to a level, I come back to this one, I hit the B key, it doesn't remember what I was doing before. So I literally have to reselect the brush. Now, to its credit, it does remember on a per brush basis what color I had. So in essence, OpenTunes is doing exactly what Blender's doing, which is that the color is married to the tool. If you want to create a bunch of tools as presets, each with its own color, then you sort of do that once and then it's done. So that's not a horrible thing. But let's go ahead and reset this. How do we do this? We want to go to edit mode, I would say. Let's hit the A key. X. Okay. And now back to draw mode. Definitely have to create hotkeys for all of this. So now what I'm going to do, let's see here. Been banging on here about Blender, Grease Pencil, and Open Tunes for about 20 minutes. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just find some anime reference. What have I been watching? I've been watching My Hero Academia. And actually, that All Might would be an interesting character to draw here because of the way they ink him. Let's I'm gonna find All Might. I'm gonna find a reference picture here. Okay, yeah, this is cool. Okay, so on my other screen, I'm just looking at a reference drawing of All Might. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to the draw pencil, and let me see. I want to gain a little facility here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, here we got lines and colors. I'm going to add a layer. I'm just going to dive in here and try to start using it kind of sort of intelligently. So I'm going to call this my sketch layer. All right, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and sketch. Definitely thinking I want to change the background. Let's see what we can do here. Overlays. We want no grid. Okay. So then what about the world? I think that's what we want to do is let's change the world so that it has a white background-ish. Viewport display. Yeah, here we go. Okay, and that didn't change. So it should be here. There should be something that lets me let me display the world background. Okay, and if it takes too long, I'll just chuck it and live with. There we go, background world. There we go. Okay, back in business. Okay, so here's what we have. So we're gonna draw All Might just so that we can test the Blender Grease Pencil 2. And it's going to be like that. So I'm trying to move quick here. Alright, so now there's this little curve up like this. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Okay, interesting nose. Very much just sort of a pointed shape. And then we got that right there. Okay. So far, I will say that drawing All Might in Grease Pencil 2 is wonderful. I mean, as far as being tactile and smooth. Off to Betty bye. Alrighty. Night night. As far as being really nice for sketching, I have to say it's a big win. Okay, so now his eyes are actually bordered by the reference drawing I'm looking at, by the way, is very, very tiny. So I'm having to look pretty close to see what's going on. And I'm not trying to make this absolutely photo perfect. I'm just trying to come pretty close. Most of the basic hotkeys for okay, now let's see. Can I just hit my right mouse and erase? Or nope, I don't want to hit my middle mouse. Okay, so this is interesting. I have to actually invoke the eraser now to erase, as opposed to just hitting the right mouse key with my pencil and it goes into erase mode. I would call that a bit of a setback, only because people who are used to the old functionality might be wanting it to still behave that way, right? It'd be my preference. Okay, so now what did I do wrong here? Let's go into edit mode. And let's go... I'm actually going to move that in. I'm going to shrink this down until it feels right. See, here's where the Blender grease pencil is really nice. The way you can just squish things around. And I really shouldn't complain too much about the fact that I'm having to click with the mouse a lot, because frankly, when I'm using OpenTunes or Krita, I tend to wind up having to do more clicking than I prefer. You just get these situations where you can set up hotkeys in a program, except for the one function that's really important to you, and for some reason that's missing in the options of things you can assign hotkeys to. I've seen that happen more than once. Okay, so I did notice when I switched back out of edit mode, it looked like the colors got a little darker here, so that was kind of strange. Not sure what would have caused that, or if that was all in my head. I don't know if I really saw that or not, but okay, so let's pull out. Now, one thing about Grease Pencil 2 is supposed to be that if I take and render this now, where's the option? Actually, let's see what happens if we render image. Okay, so it does render. This is actually a huge plus. So the regular renderer does render Grease Pencil layers from the camera point of view. What I'm generally interested in is a OpenGL render, and I saw it earlier. They moved it away from the render menu. Display mode. So I'm not gonna cry too much about that, because I remember. Seems like it was here, maybe in view. Something's missing here. Let's get out of draw mode. Let's get back into object mode. When I had it Blender open earlier, the option to do an OpenGL render was at the bottom of this window. Here we've got render, and it's not under display mode. So unfortunately, there it is. It's under view, OpenGL render. Okay, so this rendered as expected. So my question is, when I zoom way out, what happens to these lines? Do they? One of the touted features of Grease Pencil 2 was going to be that it scaled the outlines appropriately. That looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. Okay, can't complain. Alright, so I got to go back into draw mode and make sure we give All Might a big, thick bull neck, because you know All Might's the greatest hero ever. And I am actually, let's see, I hate having to keep grabbing the eraser tool, but wah, always something to complain about, right? Okay, so I better put my glasses back on. I'm starting to have fun here, and that means I'm going to be drawing a lot, and if I'm drawing a lot, then I'm at risk of frying my eyeballs, so better safe than sorry, folks, right? Okay, so there's All Might. So I'm not going to draw all of All Might. I'm here! The other day I said, I am here, and my son says, he asked if it was a reference to My Hero Academia. And it wasn't a reference to anything, but I said, if it's a reference to anything, it's a reference to Horton Hears a Who, because in Horton Hears a Who, you hear all the Who's on the little, whatever it is, the dandelion thing. It's like, we are here, we are here, we are here, right? Okay, so anyway, All Might, back to work here. No having fun allowed. What you watching over there, Kyle? What are you watching? A new Matt Groening show? What's it called? Is it funny? That's cool. We'll definitely have to check that out. I'm a huge Futurama fan. Okay, so why did I draw All Might in my test of Blender Grease Pencil 2? Actually, let's do our normal thing, which is save early, save often. And I'm going to call this Blender 2.8 All Might. So the news is Matt Groening, or Groening, however you want to say it. I've heard it said both ways by people who should know what they're talking about. Has a new show. Hopefully in the spirit of this sort of comedic tradition of Futurama and The Simpsons. Okay, All Might, you're looking good there, buddy. You're looking good. I'm going to stop there. I think that's pretty good. So now the question is, what about ink? What about ink? Okay. So what we're going to do, in order to just keep it all fair and balanced, to use the Fox News slogan a little bit liberally, we're going to go ahead and make the sketch a little darker, and now we're going to go to the, what do we want? Do we want draw pen or draw ink? I don't know. Let's look at the tools for a second and see what the difference is. This has a large radius. Let's see. Okay, this is interesting. Alright, I'm switching tools, and it is not actually updating over here. So that's interesting. Draw pen. That is interesting. There it updated when I moused over it. Okay, so there's a little bit of a flaw. If I draw a block, it doesn't update until I mouse over it. But, okay, poor baby, you have to mouse over it. That's clearly a bug, but it's not a big deal. Okay, so now what I see here, the difference between the pen has pressure on, and the ink appears not to. So let's see what happens with ink. Okay, the ink has been tweakified. Okay, this is interesting. That's actually very interesting. Did I switch away from it? Okay, so right now, this is my fault. I have the ink set to the skin, which means it's going to be a fill shape, which is definitely not what I want. So now I'm going to go over here, and what just happened is I was here with the draw pen, and then instead of this updating, it did the opposite. It actually switched back to the pencil. So there's definitely some bugginess going on. But, okay, and this is interesting too. Now the draw pen, what was I on before? Ink? Oh, I was on ink. Sorry, my bad. Okay, so we go over here to ink, and we're definitely not going to want it on skin. We're going to want it on black. Okay, so now I'm just going to test the two markers and see which one I like better, because the way you got to draw All Might, okay, there's no smoothing going on there. Options, active smoothing. Okay, that makes sense. And it looks like, let's go 0.3 and see how that feels. That's Is that different? I don't even know if that's different actually. Let's crank it up. That feels really good. Okay, I would say that the smoothing in Blender 2.8 feels better to me. Yes. Oh my gosh, that's really nice. I like it muy mucho. Okay, so one of the first things I would actually want to do here is duplicate this brush so that I can have one, because remember, the brushes, okay, so here's what I have to do. Remember that the brushes are locked to their colors. Okay. Therefore, okay, so I'm hitting another bug here. I hit the, okay, there I hit the A key. Now I'm going to lock the lines, or the sketch layer, so that I can go like this, hit the A key, select all points, and delete all those. Okay, so now I'm back in the line. So what because the color is locked to the brush, I would want to create two brushes, one with just black and one with black filled, because All Might has a lot of areas where he's got this really thick kind of outline that you really want to create it as a closed shape, if you will. So let me go to my colors here, and let's take black and duplicate it. So that would be here. Or maybe it isn't. Let's, okay, it looks like the option to duplicate a color is no longer there. So it's not there either. And when I create a new color, it's blank. So it's, I guess, okay, my bad. Let's get rid of this. I think maybe what I really need to do here, add a new material. Okay, but then where did the black go? Very interesting. Okay, so these colors are referencing materials, and so this color could actually be assigned to another material. That's interesting. So I'm gonna, okay, I can live with that. So I'm gonna go here. That's why it makes sense. I don't need to duplicate a color because I can point this to a different material. It's actually working the way Blender Materials did. So the mask type here for the fill, I'm thinking I want the alpha up and I want the color down. Okay, so if we assign, okay, so let's call this black fill. Alright, let's save our work. Okay, so what should be happening here is if we go into draw mode and draw ink, unfortunately we got to jump to here. I'm sorry, we have to jump to here, and this is attached to black, but I'm going to change it to black fill. So this should, yes, because if you're familiar with All Might, you know that we're going to need the ability to do that for sure. So, okay, so now let's put this back to black. And now, the only thing that bugs me about this pen, it seems to be sensitive to oh, I see. Wow. Okay, I like that better. Strength? I don't think I want the strength to be pressure sensitive. Okay, so again, save early, save often. So now what we can do is start inking good old All Might. Now admittedly, I'm cranking the active smoothing up. Admittedly, it's not that important that we have the ability to use the fill colors as ink based on what I was just doing, creating a second one that's filled, a second brush or color that's filled versus the one I'm using right now, which is not filled. It's not that big of a deal for the simple reason that we have the fill tool. So let me see here. This active smoothing is definitely a little obnoxious, and I don't want to change anything else. So actually, I'm kind of fighting the beast here. I need to I'm just going to color this in just 'cause I can, as long as I'm here. Don't really love the feeling of this brush for coloring. Okay, so what I was saying earlier is I can go like this, and then let's just hit the fill area tool, and for now we're going to leave this on black. So let's go to the tool. Sorry, here it is. And the fill area, okay, I'm having to remember how to do this. This is a little confusing. When I grab the pen, there's the color. When I grab the fill area, there it is. It's right there in front of my face and I'm not seeing it. Okay, we don't want to select black, we want to select black fill, because if I fill it with a non-filled palette color, then it doesn't actually fill the shape at all. Okay, so now the problem is, this is also interesting. So the fill tool is respecting other layers. So, okay, that's interesting. So when it filled, the fill was stopped by the grease pencil lines from a different layer. Okay, I can accept that. I would want the option to turn it off. But what's strange is it switched back to black from black fill. Okay, so that means here it says it's on black fill, but when I fill it, nothing happens. Leak size. Okay, so trying to find the happy medium here. Let's have a leak size of 1. Okay, that's not bad, but it's not really good either. See what's going on? I really wanted to just fill the shape, you know. Okay, that worked. So it does appear that the performance of the fill tool is somewhat dependent on how zoomed in you are. So that's definitely kind of interesting. Not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but it's definitely a thing. Okay, so let's put the radius here a little bit back further. I don't really love the thickness of the lines I'm drawing here, but what's clearly obvious is that a couple things. Number one, we're going to have to smooth this in post, and number two, we're going to want to do all the inking before we do any filling. So that's no big deal. That's not really how you'd want to work anyway. So what we need to do is go to edit mode, and what are we wanting? Where is the smooth tool? Where is the stuff we used to use for sculpt mode? Sculpt mode, there we go, smooth. Okay, so this, yep, this is going to do a fine job, no problem. Yeah, it's actually kind of anemic. Maybe I spoke too soon. So then the question, of course, becomes, where are the options for these tools. And I'm thinking, let's go to tools. Yes, radius. We want the strength to be cranked. There we go. Not the radius so much, but definitely the strength. Okay. It's pretty much doing what we wanted. That's all. We just wanted to just want to know that we're going to be able to have smooth lines. Now, having said all this, let's go back to draw mode and let's do eraser harden. Gosh, did I lock this layer? Okay, so the sketch layer is locked, so the lines should not erase, and they didn't, so that's good. I'm going to re-ink that. So we want to go to draw ink, and okay, so just out of curiosity, I wonder if this will fill. So let's go to draw mode, fill area, and just see what happens. Yeah, okay, so like I said, it's respecting the underlying layer even though that layer is locked. So that seems a bit strange to me. You would want the option to either respect separate layers for fill purposes or not. And now that those are turned off, it switched back to draw ink. Oh boy, it's behaving like OpenTunes now. Yeah, okay, so at least that fills fine. So that's what OpenTunes does all the time. Just out of the blue, it switches stuff on you. Very annoying. Okay, I really feel like my let's see what this draw pen is like. It's not any better. I definitely don't like it better. Then it switched back to draw ink. Maybe there is a reason it does that kind of sort of makes sense, and I'm just not seeing it. So if I had to say at this moment, is Blender Grease Pencil 2 going to be a viable tool for anime? Yeah, probably. It's looking pretty good. It's no worse than OpenTunes, and it's probably, on balance, I would say better than Krita. I have a real love-hate relationship with Krita because for some things, mostly drawing and painting related stuff, it's pretty darn good. But then in other ways, it's just anemically bad, and there are characteristics of the interface that reflect design choices, or either design choices that are strange, or the fact that the developers just don't have the time and resources to properly test the software and realize how much is wrong with it. And of course that depends with open source software on the community testing it. But I was ranting yesterday about the idea of their decision to remove the lock panel, or the lock icon, the little icon that lets you lock a Docker. I'm like, what person in their right mind would think removing that is a good idea? When it's very well known that Krita is prone to having you accidentally grab a Docker and decouple it from its location. So anyway, back to work here. This is probably where I should be doing turning it into a speed drawing or something. And this doesn't have to be exact. Okay, this was actually a little off. Those feather thingy dingies, I kind of screwed those up. Now, at this scale, now that I got a feel for the brush, I have to say I like the ability to draw these quick flecks, and the way that Blender is choosing to interpret those motions on my part and ink it is very nice, actually really nice. I would say that that compares favorably to an application that people tend to like a lot when it comes to inking, which would be Clip Studio Paint. Is that what it's called now? Did they change the name? I guess Clip Studio is the new name. Can't remember what the old name was. Is that right? I don't know. I don't use it. I actually have a copy of Clip Studio. They were selling it for like 25 bucks or something. I think it's like the version that only lets you animate up to 24 frames. But I thought, you know, for 25 bucks I'll give it a try and see if there's anything there. My friend Kanan White, who's a comic book artist, uses Clip Studio Paint all the time and loves it. So I have to respect that. But this ink quality, in my opinion, is sort of manga worthy. I mean, at least it feels pretty good. I mean, when you zoom in, it's like, oh, I don't know. Okay, I don't like the hard eraser. Let's redo that. Let's use this soft eraser. The soft eraser apparently erases points, and the hard eraser just kills the line. So that's kind of a nice option to have. So again, this is not exact in terms of the way his costume's supposed to be, but I'm just trying to get it blocked in, and I think after we do this, we'll deal with some color and put the fill tool through its paces, which means, let's see here. Okay, so that's not bad. It probably gives us enough to work with. He's going to be about there. This is actually going to be about like that. And they really, anatomically, have sort of really boogered this up pretty good. This is, the way they draw him is anatomically pretty bad. But hey, he's their character. And basically, they've got a lot of this kind of stuff on All Might. So that's where, hopefully, Grease Pencil 2 with its fill tool is going to be a little better able to deal with these, you know, filling in these sort of sketchy areas. But we shall see. So we got this little costume decoration, I guess you call it. Alright. And that can just get filled later. I'm going to use the hard eraser, zoom way in, so that I can just kill it. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. The erasing is a bit of a hit and miss proposition, but it's kind of made up for a bit by the fact that the fill tool does have the leak detection. I mean, that's a definite killer feature, because it allows you to fill areas that aren't actually closed spaces. Okay, so I'm gonna just say stop here, and now let's turn off the sketch. And now we want to go to the fill area, and we want to have the tool selected. I guess it was this, yes. You want to have the tool selected so that we can only, that's a problem. So we need a bigger leak detection, but you can see, so here's your problem right here. This is what you obviously run into with all programs. Maybe before we do this though, let's go to the edit tool. And I'm sorry, not edit, sculpt. Let's go to sculpt mode. Let's hit the F key to make this as big as we can, and let's just do a smooth operation on the whole thing. Okay, that seems pretty anemic. Why does it seem anemic? It's kind of strange. Let's see what the push tool does. Yep, there's our problem. We're in the wrong layer. No, we're not in the wrong layer. Okay, that's interesting. Now it's working. Okay, let's go back to the smooth tool. Okay, that's definitely working. Alright. It's pretty easy to do like way too much. So we're going in draw mode, fill areas, and we gotta go back to our tool. Was it this? Yes. So that we can, okay, and this was leaking. Okay, it leaked. Let's turn our leak detection up higher. Yeah, see, not bad. Not bad, but you can see obviously the problem. So what you want is enough, but not too much. And what just happened? That's interesting. Now it won't fill at all. So okay. So now I'm going to go back to my draw ink just because I know that the brush has black, so I can go ahead and fix this up. So there's the solution to the problem I was crying about earlier. Is you just have your brushes dialed in and ready to go so you can fix things. Alright, so let's fill this area. Not bad. And as you can see, touching it up is going to come up a lot, and that's okay. We have to do that. It doesn't matter what application you use, you're going to have to do quite a lot of manual fix-ups. Whoopsie poo, don't want that. Let's go down here, up here. Well, if we go ahead and fill that. Let's turn our leak detection down. Let's hit Control Z. Okay, wait a second. Control Z, Control Z. Okay. Leak size. Let's go with that. It's okay. I'm sort of at the point where it's like, okay, I can see this is going to require a lot of manual fix-ups, so I'm kind of doing it the way I would do it in OpenTunes. It's like, screw it, let's just get the fill areas in there as well as we can, and then we'll go in with a brush and fix it up. There's no such thing as anime production that doesn't involve fixing things up like this. However, having said that, where Blender 2.8 could become, you know, the killer thing is the way that we're going to be able to mix and match grease pencil objects that are in fact already filled. So we're going to be able to mix the idea of shapes that are filled with the idea of objects that are filled. I don't know if that's needs to be explained further to so you understand what I'm talking about, but the reason I don't use grease pencil in Blender 2.79 for fill work is because the only way to do it is to sort of think of it as objects, and you have to layer your objects and build them up from basically from back to front is the way to do it if you don't want to like drive yourself crazy. But now what I'm doing, this is again kind of similar to what you would do with Clip Studio Paint, where its brushes seem to be pretty good at this type of work. Okay, so his ear is definitely lacking, so I'm just gonna, I'm not even really checking my reference. I'm just gonna, by the way, save early, save often. We'll go in and sort of fix this. Yeah, and right here it's basically just. So another thing I want to say is probably this detail work that I'm doing right now, it's probably not real smart for me to be doing it actually. What I should be doing is probably getting the main areas filled first, but I'm curious whether the leak detection can compensate for a lot of random lines. Okay, I don't know if that made a lot of sense, but what I mean is, let's go to skin, and let's do a fill and see what happens. Okay. Alright, so now this is again where having these separate is a little problematic, because if I go to skin, I have to look at, okay, skin is just it's nothing but a fill color. So right now I'm going to save my work, because anytime things start happening that seem strange, I try to save, because maybe the software is getting ready to blow up. Okay, so again, fill area. Okay, so it switched back to black, which is a little annoying. So I got to go to the properties of the tool, and now it has skin selected. So you can see there's definitely, and it switched back to draw ink. Ah! Okay, this is supposed to be black. The fill area is supposed to be skin. Thank you very much. Okay, lot of leaks. That's okay. Okay, so now this is where we want to be a little better organized. We should put this on the colors layer. Yes, so it's underneath. Okay, not great, but not horrible. So the problem is that leak detection works kind of the opposite of what you would want. It actually suggests, I'm going to grab this draw pen. I'm going to try a little bit of an interesting strategy here. I'm going to grab the draw pen, and I'm going to make its color skin. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give myself, okay, that's going to be problematic. Yes and no. Okay, first of all, the stabilizer is driving me bananas. Let's just turn it off. Okay, so again, this is how you would have to work in Blender 2.79. And it's difficult to do in an exacting fashion, so because obviously you're constantly either going around things, like I'm doing right now. So what's the takeaway here? I think the lesson is that you want to do color because Blender wants to respect all the layers, which hopefully that's an option we can turn off, but you want to draw your character's details probably on a separate layer than the main ink lines, and you want to do your coloring based on the main ink lines. Now I'm already basically working that way in OpenTunes, in that I've sort of learned to see that does not want to fill no matter how it. Yeah, that's kind of annoying. I can't get it to just follow the shape I'm trying to draw. Okay, so now we need a yellow color, so let's go to our materials and let's take skin light and just change this color to sort of a yellow color. Alright, and then let's go back to our tool and change the color to skin light, which we really should rename yellow. Boom. Okay, file, save. So now we added yellow to the draw pen, but not the fill area. So the fill area, we want to change this to yellow and just see what happens. Okay, not bad. Not bad, actually. I can live with that. I can definitely live with that. Alright, so let's just kind of do a few more tweaky poos here to tighten it up, and then we'll use our draw pen to clean it or tighten it. Now, Is this how I would want to do it on a 1000 frame animation? No, not at all. And obviously this is problematic because it just screwed up my skin. So, like I said, what you really want to have here is the overall outline shapes of your characters, and then put your, actually I could do this with the fill tool, and then put your details and shading and all that stuff on separate layers. Otherwise you're just asking for trouble. Now I wonder if I can grab this object. Okay, what I'm trying to do is grab this, select linked, and let's get rid of that stroke. Okay, that kind of sort of worked. So you can see the flaws. I mean, you can see what's going on here that's not exactly wonderful, but neither is it exactly horrible. So, so now we're going to go to our draw mode, fill area. Yeah, good. Okay, so now, unfortunately, we have to create yet another color. They had this for skin shadow. I'm going to steal this shade and call it costume red. And it's actually the fill color that we're interested in here. So we'll just go with that. And then, of course, that's yellow, which is not good. So let's go here, change this to costume red, and boom. Okay. I'm thinking leak size is actually too big. Okay, that's kind of what I was afraid of. So let's go to our draw ink, and this is just to give ourselves, just so we can do our fills, obviously. Okay, why did it still bleed out? Did it bleed out? Okay, this is again kind of interesting. I just added those lines on the color layer, which shouldn't really matter at all. So where is it leaking? Let's give it a leak size of 4. Yep, right there. Right there. I'm pretty sure is. So, you know, and what I'm having to do here, you always have to do in every other application too. So it's neither better nor worse, would be my assessment. That's got to be the yellow there. So let's go ahead and switch this to yellow. I'd still be inclined to do my shading elsewhere though than Blender in terms of shadows and stuff, because I really like the ability in Krita and OpenTunes, although it's more difficult in OpenTunes. I like the ability to use the character as a mask for the shadows. It just makes it really easy to put shadows in. So in other words, in Krita, I can have a layer that I could just draw a big blob over his arm right here, and everything outside of the layer that contains the character would be masked out so that it would just become a shadow on the edge. And it's just really fast and convenient way to deal with shading. So that should fill, but unfortunately it filled with the wrong color. And we want to change the name of eyes to purple. Duh. File. Save. Alright, that's actually the yellow stuff, so there's the only purple, and that's supposed to be his costume. So the upshot is I didn't actually do a very good job of drawing that, so sue me. Let's fill that. Let's fill that. Let's zoom in and just fill it manually. Turn our leak size down to nothing. So it actually, now to be fair, these little white gaps are an aesthetic choice. There's certain kinds of cartoons where you would really want that and it would look good. And also, when rendered, a lot of it probably won't be noticeable. But let's go ahead and grab our yellow color here. I'm kind of at the point where I want to sort of say, okay, this was an interesting exercise, but now it's time to get back to real work. Whoops, don't want that. Hello, I guess I got to hit the shift key. Okay, so this is definitely leaking quite a bit. There we go. So that looks good. So this is kind of the inherent maybe flaw, you could argue, with the Blender Grease Pencil, is that the fills, you can really see that all of them have this little white gap issue to them. That doesn't necessarily present a problem. It would be interesting to see here how it renders. Okay, yeah, you can still definitely see it in the render, so it's not like there's anything compensating for that. So at this point, what I want to do is create a final color. We're going to take black fill, and let's add a new color, and let's use I'm going to use black fill again, but I'm going to create a new material. No, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm probably being dense here, but I'm kind of coming up with a disconnect here in terms of how you're creating the whole idea of cloning a color and then having an alternate version of it. You know, in the material editor, normally what you do is you just create a new material and it will base it on the current material that's selected, if I remember correctly. This not so much. So what I want to do here is just bring the alpha way down. Okay, so now there's the problem. It took and mapped it. So what if we get rid of that? Okay, so this, yeah. Okay, so that's not what I want. So what I want to do is I really just want to duplicate that. And it used to be easy, and now it's like really kind of bizarre. What I have to do is create a new material, and if I point it to shadow, and by the way, this is actually black fill. So the question is, yeah, and see this updated to black fill. So now that doesn't work. What I need to do is create a new, because now they're linked. So if I change this one, it changes the other one, which is stupid. When would you ever want that? You would never want that. But yet that's the default behavior. So that's a little problematic. Here it is. Add a new material. And it, okay, you know, whatever. Definitely not the desired behavior. Okay, strokes got to be completely transparent. So there's your shadow color. All right, finally getting around to something here. Okay, so now I'm going to take the draw ink. Got to go to my tool. Yeah, there's definitely some things ergonomically here for me that don't really make sense, but you know, we're getting there. Okay, so now back to my materials. I forgot to rename this, so let's call this shadow, so I know what the heck I'm doing. Shadow. Okay, now we can get busy, and this should work. Famous last words, right? Draw mode. Let's see if it works. Okay, so again, you know, I don't love the fact that I have to do this manually, but at least it works, right? So I'm actually adding more detail than you see from the producers of My Hero Academia. At least I'm not seeing any reference drawings online here that where they put in quite this much detail in terms of the shadowing and stuff, but not that this is better or anything, I'm just saying it's a little different. Okay, I'm just going to kind of do it like this. kind of doing it my way, right? And so clearly there's nothing I'm doing here that you couldn't do in Blender 2.79 as well. But meh, you know, it's fun. It looks pretty good. There's some details here that I'm definitely chimping on because I'm kind of in a hurry to get done with this little exercise, but all in all, stability seems good. It's not like, well, it hasn't blown up at all, so that's a big kudos out there to the Blender developers, because the previous build of the grease pencil, you know, the previous grease pencil build of Blender would not even run on this machine, which was, you know, it's a 12-core Intel i7 NVIDIA card. I mean, there's nothing about the specs on this machine that would suggest it's a kind of a non-starter for a more modern program, right? Because obviously we're into using OpenGL 3 in Blender 2.8. So in principle, I don't object to that at all, but it was not running there for a while. So, and frankly, I kind of gave up on it just because I want to go ahead and go get busy and get some work done, you know. So let's change this to black fill, and just to be kind of sort of accurate here on what we're doing, that should probably be smoothed, but for my purposes, I'm going to go ahead and see if Control D still works. Nope, it doesn't. Yeah, I was hoping just to make a polyline. That didn't quite work. Let's keep it a little simple there, Sherman. Well, it looks like we got a little purple area here that I missed. So let's go to purple. File, save. Okay, so now what's missing? There's a lot missing on his costume, actually. Yeah. Definitely quite a lot missing. So let's go to draw ink. Nope, we don't want that. We want to go back to black. Okay. Now it's doing fill area. Switch tools. I mean, wow. This is kind of a throwback to OpenTunes here. You do something over here and all of a sudden it switches tools over here when you never told it to. And because it switched the tool back, I lost the color change, which probably means the fill area is now the wrong color. And absolutely it is. Yeah, to me that's stupid. Sloppy, sloppy, sloppy. Alright, this should work. Okay, that's too high. Okay, so he's got this. This is really not accurate. But for experimental purposes, it's okay. Alright, let's go to the fill tool. We don't want costume red. What we're going to do is go to we're going to create a new material, and since so what if we create a new material and then assign it? I wonder if this will be independent now, unlinked. Nope, it's still linked. It's so stupid. Okay, so what is there to do? I can't figure out how to base a new material on an old material. Fine. It is what it is. Alright, so we want this line to be, I don't actually know if I need to do that if it's going to be used as a fill, but we want the alpha here to be full, and we're going to turn this up to not quite white, but so now of course we have to go back to the tool and change it there, which again I think is kind of silly, but it's what you got to do. So you all right over there, Kyle?
What?
Are you all right over there? I'm definitely not liking that quite as much as I hoped I might be able to, but yeah. Draw ink. Let's go back to shadow and fix this. So this is a major flaw that you sort of just hope the audience won't notice, right? Okay. So final assessment. The level of detail and quality, I guess I would say, that I would want to be able to achieve is going to be difficult at this point without some heavy modification to Blender in terms of hotkeys and things like that, so that we can navigate a little more intelligently. So that's really on me more than Blender. And this okay. So let's see what the camera sees. That doesn't work at all, so we got to stick with the front view. And let's go to view. I thought the view object mode? Yep. Nope. Where did the OpenGL render? I know this is like a stupid attack. There it is. It's on the view menu. My bad. Okay, so like I said, not horrible. Not exactly up to scratch. If you look at the Hero Open Movie and you look at the aesthetic of what they're doing, this actually works fine. And for that aesthetic, I can't say it's wrong. For what I'm trying to do, it might be okay, but it's probably not going to be. I'm not going to jump ship from OpenTunes at the moment, I don't think. So let me save this. How do I save this? Normally I hit F3, and F3 to save doesn't work anymore. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Alt Print Screen, so I can use this as the icon for this YouTube video. And with that, I will say, all in all, Blender Grease Pencil 2.0, well worth a look, well worth getting involved with. We're definitely going to keep a close eye on it from here on out.